Hello, everyone. Hi, Scott. Hi, Kelly.
Hi.
And
Hello.
welcome to everybody who's listening for yet another Tuesdays with Forward conversation. We will see how long this strange new world we're inhabiting will continue. But I'm really excited for tonight's conversation, and this is one of the best parts about doing this is I get to have great conversations with really fascinating artists and community leaders, and hopefully those of you who are listening get to benefit from that as well. And this evening we have with us Kelley Faulkner, who's an accomplished Wisconsin-based professional theater artist and also a representative with Actors Equity Association, the professional union of stage managers and stage performers here in the United States. And before we really jump into this, I just want to encourage anyone who is listening live throughout the conversation. You can post questions on YouTube, on Facebook in the chat section, and so you can feed those questions to Kelley and to me. And so we would love to hear from you. But Kelley, welcome. It's so nice
Thank you.
to talk with you.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, and I sort of gave the real thumbnail introduction, but just tell everyone listening a little bit more about yourself, both as a performer and artist, and also in relation to equity.
Yeah, I grew up in the New York City area. I've been acting professionally since I was a kid, actually. I'm one of those rare people who had parents that were like, yeah, go be a professional actor. Always supported me doing that. So yeah, and I worked out of New York City for a little bit. I lived in Philadelphia and worked in the Philly market for 5 years. And I've been in Milwaukee for about a decade now. Done a little bit of choreography in the last few years, as well as acting. Worked a lot in Milwaukee rep over the last 10 years, worked for Optimist Theater and out in Janeville at Fireside. And about 4 years ago, I was elected to the National Council of Actors Equity as a principal counselor. And just last month, I became your new Central Regional Vice President.
So explain sort of how equities governance works. Like, what is the function of the council, and what was your function as a counselor before and now as a regional rep? Like, what does that mean?
So we've got staff who are paid and it's their job to work for equity, and we've got the electeds on the governance side, and we make policy that staff enacts. So I mean, we kind of act as a board of directors in a way, but we're like more involved than a board of directors that a corporation would be. But there's 83 of us on the National Council. There's a certain number of electeds per region: Central, Eastern, and West. They're apportioned by job category, so we have to have a certain amount of stage managers and chorus members, as well as principal actors. And my job function now is only different in that I get to have a bit of a bigger voice when it comes to like advocating for public policy. I chair the Central Regional Board meetings now. I sit on the executive committee and a couple of other committees just by virtue of being an officer. But that's really the only way it's different from being a counselor like I was for the past 4 years.
And certainly anybody listening to this conversation knows as much of an upheaval as these last number of months have been for everyone in America, across the world, honestly, as we've dealt with COVID and the ways in which it's impacting everyday life. Obviously, this has been a seismic event when it comes to live theater. And, equity has been kind of at the center of that. Tell me a little bit, because I'm sure you have some statistics at your fingertips, and it's okay if you don't. But for folks who are listening who may not know this, like, this has been a devastating time for professional theater artists. I mean, theaters all had to close down. Work just dried up almost instantaneously. Yeah. And there's, not a lot of certainty about how and when things are coming back. And what has been sort of for the field, what is the economic impact been like for equity members?
I mean, it's been devastating. We are going to be the last industry. Live events are going to be the last industry to come back safely. And I think this is a perfect time to talk about advocating with your representatives on the state and federal level. The HEROES Act involves a huge amount of arts funding. Other countries are getting it right, which we should be paying attention to. But also, extension of unemployment benefits and COBRA subsidies, which are a huge issue for our industry. As I'm sure you know, I'm losing my health insurance as of right now at the end of the year. A lot of us are, and having COBRA subsidies would be like a real game changer, because right now our health fund has nearly zero contributions coming in, and so equity, just like any other organization, and the health fund cannot survive this unless theater is able to come back at a certain point, but also unless the government steps in to help. So that's going to be huge.
Yeah. And for anyone listening who isn't really familiar with how equity works, I can say, so from a producer standpoint, the way that it works, because we work with both union member professional actors and stage managers, as well as some who are not members of the union. It's about 2/3 union members here at Forward. And, we have the amount that each of those artists gets paid on a weekly basis to work with us. And there's certainly minimums that are set by different equity agreements. But then we, as producers, also pay into a health fund and a pension fund on a weekly basis for each week that we've employed one of the union members. And that's, so to speak to what you're talking about, when we're not employing people, and by we, I mean all of us producers, then there's not money going into that fund that then pays health benefits to those members. And it's been some of the most heartbreaking conversations that I've been having with colleagues over these last months has, been around this horrible issue of health weeks and the way, that insurance is tied to employment in this country. We've been lucky at Forward that we've, been able to commit to honoring these contracts for the year ahead, but totally get that that's not feasible for everybody. And it's really terrifying.
It is. And again, this is like a good time to delve into the fact that maybe we need to approach healthcare in this country differently. I've been very proud of the fact that, when I've qualified for health insurance through equity, which has been frequent, I've been very fortunate. It's amazing health insurance, right? We pay a quarterly premium, and it is a fraction of what, I would be paying in the marketplace, or even with most employer-based plans. But it actually shouldn't have to be this way. And I think we were talking a little earlier about silver linings. Like, maybe one of the silver linings to a catastrophe like this is just completely rethinking how we approach certain things in this country and even within our industry.
So I know that at least within, the circle of artists and technicians that I talk to regularly, working here in Wisconsin, working in professional theater, there have been so many conversations about when will equity members be able to go back to work, and what does that look like? And, it's been rough because, I don't want to mischaracterize what it's been like to be a part of the inner circle at Equity. But from the outside, I would say that it rightly seems that everyone's been underwater. This has been a completely unprecedented, catastrophic, seismic, what are all the big words for this industry. And, the union is responsible not just for working conditions and the livelihoods of so many people, but now we are literally talking about physical health and safety to a much more heightened degree than when we're talking about whether you can have a raked stage. So clearly, there's been a tremendous amount, an unfathomable amount of work happening behind the scenes at Equity, but a lot of that hasn't really been transparent to people outside of the union. So, to the extent you're able, can you kind of describe what the conversations and the work has been like inside the union since, mid-March, when everything started to really implode?
Well, first of all, I do think it's important that I give the little disclaimer that I don't speak on behalf of the union officially, but I'm happy to share what I can as a member and as a leader. And the truth is that the news regarding this virus and the information that we're given, as just human beings, citizens, changes every day. So there's no blanket way to approach this. And we have a huge responsibility as a union that looks out for member safety. That is our first priority, to get this right. And we only have one chance to get this right. You know, we might not get every detail right along the way, but we do have a huge opportunity to here to stand on the side of right and say, we are not willing to put our members in harm's way. And so we hired Dr. David Michaels, who worked in the Obama administration, former head of OSHA, to work with us as an expert. And, you know, he's been working collaboratively along with staff on the safety plans that have been submitted, which have been in the dozens, if not hundreds at this point, which is amazing because theaters are really being proactive and taking the bull by the horns and saying, this is what we can do. This is what we're willing to do. Is this enough? Help us. And so that's part of why Dr. Michaels is there. But, you know, the problem is that, you know, he put out these 4 core principles, which dealt with the epidemic needs to be under control in that area. We need reliable testing. And so those are the first 2. And it's kind of a non-starter if we don't have those 2, right? And now also there's areas that, you know, the numbers are decreasing and maybe we approve a contract and then the numbers go back up. So these are just the things that we are navigating, like I would say day by day, but it's really like hour by hour. But the good news is, you know, as I said, so many producers are really stepping up to the plate and saying, how do we make this work? You know, we don't want to do anything that's unsafe, but we want to work with you. And so there have been all of 2 theaters approved so far, but 2 is better than 0.
Yeah.
And, you know, like if this country can get it together and get these numbers down, we're going to come back, and we're not going to come back in the same way that we were making theater 6 months ago right now, but we're going to come back. And so it's just been such a relief when Dr. Michaels has been on the calls with us to answer questions. It's been such a relief because he's so pragmatic, and you know, he doesn't have all the answers right now because nobody does about this particular virus, but he can tell us from an expert's point of view, you know, what his thoughts are and how we should be approaching this.
Yeah, it's been really remarkable to watch all of this playing out and to be talking with so many colleagues, and also just observing from afar theater producers around the country. And you know, one of the reasons I'm so proud to run an equity company, and it's not because every single actor or stage manager we work with is a union member, like I said before, but you know, equity has put so much thought over the years into creating a safe and supported work environment, a professional and protected work environment. And what I love is that, you know, I would like to think that these are all things that we would do anyway, but it's such a wonderful checklist and go, yep, and we've done this and this, and that applies to everybody here, you know, and now everybody, union and non-union, gets to benefit from the sort of safe and respectful work conditions, right, that are created in large part because of the advocacy work that equity did over a century, right? And so, I mean, we are all so desperately eager to get back into the theater and to make theater and tell stories the way we want to. But I mean, I don't want to go sit in a movie theater right now. I don't want to take my kids there. And so the idea of pulling these artists that we love and respect so much and putting them in a room before we've figured out how to do it safely just baffles me. And to see companies, you know, a number of companies in the country that have said, well, we'll just not use any union people, and that way we can go back to rehearsal right now. I just, you know, our non-union, you know, fellow artists aren't cannon fodder, you know,
Exactly. Absolutely. Well, that's the thing. It's like, you know, no, our members are not going to be the canaries in the coal mine here. That's not a fair thing to ask. And, you know, people do need to have some level of personal agency, but as long as you are a member of a labor union that has your best interest at heart, you know, you are beholden to the rules of that union. So fortunately, you know, there's been a very small handful of theaters that have decided to proceed without contracts. And, you know, there are repercussions, both ethically and financially for that. So I'm hoping that it stays a small number.
Yeah. So I see we've got a question from our friends asking what you mean by the fact that 2 theaters have been approved. So what does the approval allow? So can you tell us, I know what those 2 companies, tell us about that.
I actually don't know a huge amount about the details of both of these contracts, but it's Barrington Stage, there's a production of Godspell, and then there's I could be getting this slightly wrong, but Berkshire Theater Festival, I believe, has a one-man show. And so, like I said, theaters are submitting safety plans, but a lot of it has to do with what the numbers are like in that particular area. What the ventilation system is like, what the backstage area can accommodate. So as of right now, Equity has approved those 2 theaters to go ahead and do productions with our members sometime in the next few months. And so it doesn't mean, that other theaters, there's plenty of other theaters that are, in limbo right now, but in limbo just means working with staff and Dr. Michaels to figure out, not the if, but just the how of moving forward.
Right. I know that in our conversations, there's been a lot of discussion about the kinds of factors that normally are not as big a concern, but outdoor is safer than indoor. It's the same things that apply to our everyday life right now. Outdoor is safer than indoor, smaller groups safer than larger groups. Singing is worse than speaking. It's all about how many droplets are you putting out in the air and how close are you to people when you're doing it. And so, my understanding is that those 2 approved projects so far, I think one's outdoors and another, it's the 1-person show, but like you've taken out half the rows or something like that in the theater and really spreading people out. So, I think most of us around the country are really watching and hoping as those companies sort of tiptoe back into producing.
Yeah, and it just made me think like the other, another silver lining in this, terrible pandemic is that there are things that we have tried to negotiate into our contracts that we've advocated for, like additional understudy coverage or, additional ASMs, making sure that, we're not having actor ASMs pulling double duty, which really is a safety issue. But that's just it. These things, which I think at one time producers might go, well, that seems like, it's a little bit extra. It's a disposable idea. These are issues of workplace safety. And I think, the understudy thing especially has been, looked at a certain way by producers that I think are going to have to really take a harder look at like people's health and safety and how we're covering and allowing for actors to be ill, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And stage managers for that. I mean, that's the other thing. Stage managers almost never have any coverage, and the more ASMs we can put on contract, the safer that they can keep actors on the deck, but also the safer it is for our stage managers who may need to call out of work like every other human being.
I see we have a question from Zachary Dean asking if you have any thoughts on those singer masks that are being shared on social media.
I don't think I've seen a singer mask. I mean, I think all of these like solutions that people are coming up with are all like worth a look for sure. Right now singing is dangerous, and any way that we can help it not be dangerous would be something worth looking into. I mean, it's hard. I know there are some companies that are saying we'll put actors in masks, and others that are saying absolutely not, that defeats the purpose. And the CDC like revoked its original recommendation against singing in public places, but it was apparently a political move because they wanted people to be able to gather in churches. But I had this conversation with Dr. Michaels himself actually, and he was like, no, singing is really, really dangerous as long as this virus is still spreading. So if there's any kind of masking that can help that, I'd love to know about it.
Yeah, I've sort of seen like screenshots that, that these things are being developed, that technology is trying to adapt to what's needed, but I don't really know anything about it myself either.
Yeah.
Luckily, we don't do a ton of musicals. Mike Fisher's rolling in his right now because we love them, but we don't often do them, and that's a little bit of a saving grace right now.
Yeah.
This is going back a little bit, but what inspired you to want to serve as a representative within the union? Because it's obviously a big time commitment and a lot of work.
It is. So, I found that most of us that get involved in governance are motivated by good old fashioned anger and frustration. Like we get like something stuck in our craw, there's a specific issue, and we're like, I don't like how this is being handled. And but truthfully, it ends up being a blessing because you get in the room and not everybody sticks with the work, but I think a lot of us end up finding the work really satisfying. And so that's what happened with me. In 2016, there was a big debate about intimate theater in Los Angeles. And despite not being a part of that community at all, I got really activated and was like, you know what? I'm going to run for council. If, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And I weirdly got elected. And, it was very fraught at that time. We were in the middle of a lawsuit, and I was very much a minority voice in the room on that issue. But after the dust settled, I was like, what am I doing here? What can I do here? What can I get accomplished? And started building really good relationships with so many of the truly brilliant people in that room. And yeah, I mean, it really, just going down a Facebook rabbit hole ended up like really kind of changing my life, because being part of the labor movement now is a huge part of my life.
Yeah. So you've got obviously this other large part of your life, which is as an artist and a performer. Yeah. And so, what is this this COVID era been like for you, Kelley, not you, Kelley, representative with Actors Equity?
Well, it's scary. I mean, it's scary and it's frustrating. I had like a few big irons in the fire at the very beginning of this year, and now, everything is on hold. So I have to say, getting to stay involved and be involved in a really profound way in making decisions that will affect my industry moving forward has actually been really amazing. Because as busy as I've been and as stressful as it all is, it's helping me not feel helpless and useless, and I think we all just really need to, put our thinking caps on and decide how we move forward telling stories in a different way. And if that means virtually, that means virtually. If it means taking out half the seats in the theater, it means that too. But it's really, really, really not ideal. And we all know that, but it's our reality right now. And I think that, like I said, we have to cling. I mean, what I've been doing as an artist is just staying creative, and listening to good music and reading good books, and but staying activated in what we can do for our industry, and clinging to those silver linings, like maybe this will make us look at health insurance in a different way moving forward. And I honestly believe that we're going to come out of this as a union and as an industry better. I really do.
I'm knocking on all the wood over here.
Yes.
Well, our friend Sarah Marty has, of course, a brilliant question. What's the first show you'd like to perform when it's safe to go back to the theater?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I'm just gonna a random dream role that I've done the show, but I haven't played this role. I want to play Dot in Sunday in the Park with George. I did a professional production of the show when I was a little girl. I played the little girl, the little obnoxious girl Louise, and I was 11 years old, and that was like my introduction to Sondheim, and it was mind-blowing and life-changing. So yeah, I would love to do that show. So that's what I'm saying.
I love it. Oh, that's great. I love there was some stunning numbers from that in that Sondheim 90th birthday celebration concert. I don't know if you watched any of that, but oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I really like that show, but there were some moments in that event that really reminded me how much I love it.
Yeah.
It was really good. Oh, I love it. Well, is there, we're nearing that time where we may start to wrap up. So is there anything, knowing that the folks listening to this are a mix of people who work in the theater and people who just like going to the theater and knowing more about how theater is put together, is there anything you kind of wish people knew or understood about the union, or about how the union is, sort of navigating these waters, or, really anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think it's just important to remember that the union is there to advocate for its members, right? First and foremost, but is completely committed to collaborating with theaters right now. So I think it's very easy to get frustrated or, to listen to narratives that say, we have to get back to work right away. But the truth of the matter is, if you have an idea about how you would like to employ a member, or if you're a member and you're concerned about a certain theater and not being able to be on contract, that call the office, talk to a business rep. And if you have friends that are, or know anybody that's part of the elected body, reach out to us as well, because a lot of the times we can actually sort of, be able to advance these conversations. Or also just give you a perspective and say, oh, you're not hearing back because XYZ. So just be proactive, because our staff is reduced just like everybody else's staff is reduced. And, things are changing daily, but the staff is really, really working incredibly hard. We have some really just rock stars in that office. Andrea Hession is our sort of new-ish central regional director, and she's been a godsend. She's actually from Milwaukee as well, so you've got two Milwaukee ladies leading the central region. But yeah, just reach out to staff if you need anything, or reach out to me.
Yeah,
I'll take the call.
Yeah, and I keep reminding myself and everyone I'm talking to, this is all hard, and we need to be incredibly creative to figure out how to make it through this time. But that's what we do. We're in a creative field, and so
yes, and it's also important to remember that we're on the same team. Like all of us are on the same team, and I think we have the same goals for the most part. So yeah.
Thank you so much for this conversation, Kelley. This has been absolutely fantastic. I'm confident people listening have learned some new things. I certainly have. It's wonderful to have you advocating for this industry in this region. And you're absolutely right. We are all pulling together, and we're going to keep doing what we can do under the conditions, and we're going to keep figuring out how we can do more safely, as quickly as we can.
And thank you for being an amazing and responsible theater maker right now, because that's important and it means a lot. And so thank you for your advocacy, truly.
I'm delighted to get to work with all of these wonderful people, and I want to keep them all safe so we can keep doing it. That's the goal, right? Being able to keep long term. So, well, thank you so much, Kelley. Thanks, Scott, for producing. Thanks, everyone who's been listening this evening. And we'll be back next week, and we'll have more great conversations. Good night, everyone.
Good night.